guys, how's it going? Today we have several things to check off the list. We're going to start here in the Hartley area with a couple of updates, brick patio and the tulips, which are looking spectacular. We're going to plant some roses. We've got some beautiful tree roses for this area, some roses for our cut rose garden. We've got some perennial campanulas to plant in the cut flower garden, and some fall gold raspberries to finally finish out planting our row of fall golds. I also want to talk through just some basics about the different types of roses that you most commonly see. But anyway, let's take a look at this area. I cannot even believe that I'm looking at this right now. I mean, I know we had a brick patio in here before, but it looked nothing like this one's starting to look. I'm just so excited about it. So what they've done, they did all of their lines. They started to lay the patio here, and they're going to get the bulk of the patio done before, they cut our swoops and do the border around the whole thing. And then we'll decide after the whole brick patio is laid how big of a circular area in the middle we want, and then they will cut and do a border around that as well. They did make quite good progress this week. They had to stop and take a day to shift the bricks because it wasn't square with the Hartley. It was rotated clockwise, and I was standing down by the Hartley one night and looking up, and all the bricks were running off in the wrong direction, and I thought, I wonder if that's an optical illusion. So I texted Benny and said, I think we should run lines just one more time to verify we're going in the right direction. And sure enough, we were off a little bit. So it was nice that we got that corrected before they got too far. They weren't this far into the project at that point. So that set it back just a tiny bit, but I'm so happy with the whole look. These are the bricks we've been using on all of our walkways. Aaron bought a bunch of them when Home Depot was running a big sale, and I think they're called Holland paver, possibly. But I'm so thankful he did that, because then we have enough to do these sorts of projects and do little walkways and have everything match. But this patio, the lines of it are going to be an exact mirror of the lines we have down here. And there's our tree roses we're going to plant today. Aren't those like the biggest, most beautiful roses ever? Oh, I could not believe my eyes when I saw them. Anyway, you can see the lines down here. We're going to just mirror that. So the brick will come like this, and it'll go over, and then we'll do our swoop so that it looks very cohesive. But while we're here, quick look at the tag. This is a Julia Child Floribunda rose tree. That's obviously, it's been grafted onto a really tough rose cane. I'll talk a little more on that in a minute. But my parents have a couple of these in their garden. They've done pretty well for them. So I'm very excited about it. I love the color. The shape and the size of these are absolute perfection. They're gonna look really good right here. But the Clearwater tulips, since the last time I showed you, look at how much they have colored up. I mean, just amazing. Now we're pretty early in the morning right now. It's like 8-ish. So it's cooler out. So all the, all the petals are closed. But in the middle of the day, they all start opening up, like this. So pretty, and the alliums are coming up. You can see all the buds in here. That'll be really gorgeous. And then back here, I think every square has color now. These are the Sauna tulips, and they are just perfect. I don't know what the best angle with the light right now is to see these. Look at that. It's interesting how they've all kind of caught up with one another, but the tulips right here will fizzle out first. This quadrant grew the fastest out of all four, and then that one, which that one started blooming next, and then that one, and then that one's the last one. Interesting. I don't really know exactly why. I mean, both of those beds were in a little bit more shade through the winter, so that, I guess that kind of makes sense. But it was just so one after the other. But I'm so happy that we get to see the color together. All four of them at the same time. Our temperatures, like it being 83 today, are going to get 83, and then we have a couple of 86-degree days. I think all of them are in the 80s at this point. And with our tulips just opening, right when it starts to turn into the 80s, they won't last very long. So we won't have a super long show of tulip blooms, but I'm just thankful that we got to see this all kind of come together. They've just got the prettiest color and structure. So gorgeous. Let's look at the Clearwaters on this side. Looking awesome. We're starting to see a tiny bit of color in these containers as well. And I have to scrounge up the names of these because, as per usual, I can't remember. They're a mix of two different kinds of soft yellows. One that gets taller that I put in the center, and then I did a ring around those with these really sweet littler ones that also have the pointy petals. A little bit of color on our ranunculus. Just buds mainly, tons of buds. And then this one has a little bit more. The tulips pushed the drip tube up. I'm gonna have to work that back down. Really love that. I'll show you the back of our cart here really quick too, so you can see the other things we have in store for us. But first, look at these daffodils. They've really started to open and show us so much more color since our last tour. Such a pretty time of day. Okay, here are the other things real quick. We've got our fall gold raspberries, which are huge. They look gorgeous. Like, that's one plant right there. We've got this David Austin. We picked this up on our last shopping trip down there together. The Lark Ascending. I think that's a beautiful one to put in the apricot category. We've got 5 other ones. I'll run through those varieties once we get out here. These are all from heirloom roses. So this is another load that came our way. We've got a few more coming from them as well. And then here is our flat of Campanulas. We started these from seed, and these are a perennial Campanula that are called the double mix. So we've got like whites and pinks and blues, I think, in this mix. All right, guys, let's start by planting the rose trees because I'm so excited to see what those are gonna look like. I'm gonna use a shovel for pretty much everything today because everywhere we are planting has already been mulched. I wanna try to keep the mess at a minimum. Oh, they look so good. Aren't they beautiful? Perfect structure for that spot too. Now, I don't expect them to be the plants that will be here forever. It's kind of like with any brand new garden, you kind of have to treat it like a full sun garden in the beginning because, you know, our trees are little. They're not going to be casting a tremendous amount of shade. And I'm not sure, these are a Pacific sunset maple. I'm not sure how fast to expect them to grow. So I imagine we'll get plenty of years, hopefully, out of these rose trees. Oh, they're so gorgeous. But that's one reason why we like to use boxwoods in a lot of areas, especially if you're doing something formal where the light might change from shade to sun, and somewhere in between. Boxwoods can handle that. They can handle the variation of light and really do well. Everything else we put in this area will likely need to be shifted at some point. But these rose trees, so rose trees are grafted. They're one of two ways usually. They'll either take the roots and a really strong cane of a really strong rose. A lot of times it's a Dr. Huey. You may have heard that name before. And then they'll graft a different type of rose, in this case Julia Child, onto the top. And I'm seeing 5 grafts on the top of the stem. I'll show you close up in a second. And then I have seen some rose trees that are oh my word. And I have seen some rose trees that are grafted both at the bottom, so they'll take a strong rootstock. It's really cold hardy and all of that business, very vigorous. They'll graft a very strong cane onto that rootstock, and then they'll graft it up on top. And grafted roses are typically not as tough because the graft is a weak part, a weak spot in the rose. They're not as tough as own root roses. But I'm not sure, I mean, are there own root rose trees out there that you can train from a cane? I'm sure you could do that. But these roses in my parents' garden have done really well through the past several years. So I'm hopeful that these will do well. I'm going to keep my eyes on them though when it gets cold. If we're going to have a sudden downshift in temperature, I may come out and wrap the tops of the roses. I think it's typically recommended to plant them in pots so that you can move them somewhere that's more protected if you are in a colder growing zone. Let's take a close look. I just rooted around the base and I don't see any graft down here. So we've just got the roots, a strong cane, and then right up here at the top, you can see the individual grafts. It's where it gets kind of swollen in here. So we've got 1, there's 2, 3, 4, and 5 right there to the top. And that's what's giving us that great big, beautiful canopy. The Julia Child that's been grafted onto this cane is a type of Floribunda, which I will run through those types here in a second once we head out to the rose garden. I got them watered in, and then I've got the hose on a very slow trickle, and I'm just going to leave it on this one for a while, and then I'll come back in about an hour or so and move it onto this one just so they get a nice deep soak. I think I'm going to open up the windows in the Hartley quick. It looked like one of these was wilting, this one. Let's give it a little drink. Just watered all these yesterday. I must have missed this one. Oh, let's give the dill some water. All right, now out to the rose garden. Okay guys, here we are out in the rose garden. We haven't added any others since the last time we planted out here, and everything's doing well. After we planted, we had some nights in the mid and high 20s, and I was super worried about them. A few of them show like some of their leaves are a little bit sad, but most of them look like this. This is one of the ones from Heirloom Roses right there. So here's what we've got today. We've got 3 to add to our pink section. We've got one called Scepter de Isle, which is a David Austin. We'll toss pictures up on the screen so you can see. One called Matchless Mother, and this one looks an awful lot like Boscobel to me, like in color tones. And then we've got, is it Lida or Lida? Lida Rose, so pretty. It's like a creamy lavender with a rose pink side. One side's rose pink and the other side's like a creamy, yeah, creamy lavender. I don't know, it's so, so pretty. And then we've got Imogen, a pale yellow. And then we've got 2 for our apricot orange row. The Lark Ascending that I just showed you, and Wollerton Old Hall. It says it's a David Austin, and it's a fragrant, climber. What? Hold on, let me check my spreadsheet. It says it's a climber. So is this true? If it is, we need to put it somewhere else. Oh, it says it grows 8 by 3, nearly thornless, and it can be kept in shrub form. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep its growth in check. Okay, so real quick, I just wanted to run through some of the most popular roses you can buy, because I know when you go down to the garden center, you see, well, like down at my parents' garden center, they've got them categorized. So there's the David Austins in one section, the English roses. There's the hybrid teas, Floribundas, grandifloras, climbers, miniatures. Those are probably the most popular ones. There's a whole bunch of other rose categories though out there, but hybrid tea roses are like your classic rose. Typically they bloom on a very long stem, like a single bloom on top of a stem, so they're really excellent for cutting. A lot of them have been grafted, some are own root. A lot of them have been grafted, but there's so many different varieties, and I think through the years that could probably be said to be the most popular type of rose. And then you have the Floribundas, like the Julia Child rose trees we just put in, which are more free flowering. They bloom more than the hybrid teas do. Hybrid teas will usually do 2 or maybe 3 flushes in a season. The Floribundas just kind of keep on going, and they have multiple blooms per stem, and oftentimes they're a little bit more open of a rose, if that makes sense. The bloom shape is just a little bit different. And then you have grandifloras, which fall right in between. It's a mix between your hybrid tea and your Floribunda. So you kind of get the beautiful shape of a hybrid tea rose, but in a Floribunda sort of growth habit, where they are more free flowering, you get more blooms from them. You usually see clusters of 3 to 5 blooms per stem, and I really like using those for arrangements just because you have so many different flowers in different stages of bloom, and it adds a lot of dimension to your arrangements. Typically you'll see that Floribundas are a little bit more easy to care for. You don't have to deadhead them quite as much as you would like a hybrid tea to keep them productive. They're typically hardier. So the grandifloras just kind of fall right in the middle of those. Climbers are just, you know, they produce really long arching stems that can be trained onto trellises or fences, and they're just really great for that sort of thing. And there's also a category that I think could kind of be lumped into climbers, which are ramblers, which kind of do the same thing. They produce the really long arching stems. They're really good at going through, like almost like you know, the like living fences. Hedgerows, is that what they call them? Like brambly looking roses. They're just perfect to go in and throughout other plants. Miniature roses are those that just stay miniature. They're way more compact. I mean, I see some that stay 1 foot to 18 inches tall, and they have clusters of a lot smaller, more petite blooms. I remember when I worked down at the garden center, there were a couple of ladies that collected miniature roses, and they just had beautiful displays of these gorgeous plants. And it's nice because they stay smaller, much more manageable, but you still get that rose, you know, look and the color. And then there are shrub roses, which, you know, can range in size from, you know, like medium to large usually, up to super big, almost categorizing them into a climber, but they're typically really winter hardy. They can withstand cold temperatures. There are also ground cover roses, which are usually very low maintenance, hands off, don't have to head them sort of roses that sprawl a little bit closer to the ground, and they provide color, and yeah, they just stay a lot shorter. And then there are English or David Austin roses, which is my favorite category, and we have several of them in this garden already. I have to kind of control myself to not plant the entire thing full of English roses because I do want some different rose shapes in here so that we have multiple different types to work with when we make arrangements. But David Austin roses are typically like you get that old rose look and scent, but then you get some of the more modern hybrid colors, maybe a little bit more hardy than some of the older English roses. They're amazing. And I think that that's pretty much, I mean, there's like fotitas and rugosas, kind of like the more wild looking roses. There's just a whole bunch of other subcategories or categories we could go through, but those are kind of the most popular ones that I see. So I think what I'm going to do is just line these roses up where they need to go in the proper rows and get them in the ground. Roses are in. It doesn't look a whole lot different, but we have the 3 new pink ones right here. So, you know, our first row is all pink, and then our second row will be all pink, and it's just variations of. And then the next 2 rows are dedicated to apricot and orange, which can skew either yellow or pink, but we put the 2 new ones right here. And then after that, the next 2 rows are dedicated to yellows, which might skew apricot and then might skew white or cream, which is the next row after that. But our yellow one went right at the end of that row, right there. Got them all watered in. I'm gonna have to come back out with the emitters and I'll tap in, you can see the drip tube that goes right through. I'll tap into that so that they'll be watering automatically after today. Okay, so now we are going to plant our berries. Let me show you what we've got going here. Our berry beds are actually just, if I rotate slowly, you can see we were just here. Berry beds are here. First one, and these are 30 foot by 3 foot. This is full of heritage red raspberries. And then the next bed is full of fall, well, not full, it'll be full after today, of fall golds. You can see I've got so many suckers or runners. I could just dig my own and put them up in there, but I've got some people who want to come dig these out for their garden. So we'll just leave them for them and we'll pop, and I don't think I've got 10. I think I'm gonna plant maybe 5, that's it. Which is perfect because I know my brother was wanting some more of those fall golds as well, so I can just give him my extra 5 plants. And this is what they are, you guys. The yellow raspberry, 4 to 5 foot tall, 2 foot spacing just about, but they are so good. I actually prefer them over red raspberries. They have a higher sugar content and they just melt in your mouth. They are so delicious. So I'm very excited to have a full bed of those this year. So let's get these in. I'm just gonna plant these normally, biotone starter fertilizer, and pop them in, water them, and we'll be done with that part. We got one more thing to do. All done. I was able to fit 6 in here just perfectly. They're just over 2 feet apart in spacing, but you see what they do. Like, they spread out so quickly and spread all over the place as well. So as long as this raspberry patch lives, this patch will be supplying a bunch of other gardens in this area. And we filled these beds initially with the Espoma raised bed mix, but I did come along and I put some soil acidifier and some, I can't remember what I used, garden tone or plant tone. You can use berry tone in beds like this. I don't think I had any of that at the time, but I already fertilized everything else in here, and then these new raspberries have the biotone on board. But I do think we're going to come along and top dress with the land and sea compost, which is slightly more acidic, which is perfect for our soil. And berries tend to like it slightly acidic as well, so I think that will be a good mix. And this is the last thing we're going to plant today. Let's head to the perennial section in the cut flower garden. Campanulas are in right here. So they're in the same row with delphiniums, which I'm going to be adding more delphiniums to the end of that row. The row over, I have been working out here a little bit. This is going to be our more drought tolerant stuff. So like last night I came out and planted 1 flat of Eryngium or sea holly, and then we have Rudbeckia, and we have yarrow. We also have strawberries in this area, which I'll probably leave for now. I did want to build a more permanent strawberry planter that's maybe like waist high, because they're such little short plants. It'd be nice to harvest without having to get onto your hands and knees to do it. But for now, that's where they're gonna stay. We also have our wheat planted that last fall, and it is looking beautiful. So of course we'll let that grow and we'll harvest that this year. And then we still have the ranch panels set up right behind it. My goal is to not have any ranch panels out here in the end. I want to have more permanent looking, like in the dahlia area, I think I'm going to get rid of the T-posts and put in prettier posts eventually, and have things just a little bit more permanent looking. But the ranch panels in this area, we are going to be growing the sweet peas on this year because I don't have any infrastructure for them set up anywhere else. So that's where those are going to go. Maybe even today. I might come out here and plant those today. But that's it, you guys. We made it through our cart of plants. -4 raspberries, which will go to my brother's house, I hope. I hope he hasn't picked any up yet. Show you just a couple other things while we are out here. The orchard, of course, is just looking so pretty. Oh my gosh. The peaches are now in bloom back here, as is plum and the nectarine. This nectarine already bloomed, and the apricots already bloomed. I haven't seen anything on the apples yet. They're usually the last ones. Buds. I see buds. This is a Fuji. And then over here, I was just noticing how many of the daffodils and tulips are up together, which is so rare for us. We don't get to see those at the same time. So you can see the pink mixed in with the yellow, and it's just a really sweet look out here. There are so many bulbs yet to bloom. I mean, all of the strappy green foliage you're seeing everywhere, that's all bulbs that we still have to see bloom. These daffodils right here, the brighter yellow ones, just started blooming like a couple days ago. That's one real big positive of having a weird weather year. You get to enjoy your plants doing something completely different. Not what you normally expect. But that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one.